Oh, that was why. Okay, it says now I'm now live. I'm live on streaming on YouTube, but we've got about 30 seconds to go before the radio program to start. So I'm on my YouTube page. It does say live stream health, and so there it is. It's on a slight delay, but let's see, Blanca. I says 15 seconds left, so we're going to hear this 10, whatever, 5 or whatever pretty soon. So yeah, getting ready to start here. Okay, let's see.
Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Blog Talk Radio.
Well, good evening, folks. This is Dave Schmidt, and I'm your host here again tonight on the Sedona Connection. It's a pleasure to be with you here. This is the program on August 30th in the year 2017. It is 6 p.m. on the West Coast. It's 9 p.m. on the East Coast, and that means it is 6 p.m. at my home here in Sedona, Arizona. And yes, this week I am at home. And yes, when I'm at home, I rarely have all kinds of the problems like what we had last week. And I have absolutely no idea why that all of a sudden it just went off the air. Everything was running fine. Some folks had mentioned, well, it might have been, your bandwidth issue. No, it wasn't bandwidth. The reason, all of a sudden, it just cut out and went blank. But we're here. We're good. We're fine. We're on the air. And thank you very much for joining us this week on August 30th. And with that, Blanca, how are you doing, and how are things in Atlanta, Georgia this week?
We're doing very well over here, Dave, and it's nice to hear. I don't have any echo, and hopefully we can continue with the show with no mysterious cutoffs. I still say maybe you just got into a very good conversation with the wing makers on the phone and just forgot about it.
Who knows?
You deny it anytime I bring it up.
It was just so ironic, the timing of it. I had just finished going through what was my session, my period of time, and we were just getting ready to go into the callers, and boom, it was gone. They could hear you, but they couldn't hear me, and they couldn't see me or anything. But I was still on the YouTube live streaming, and they could all hear me there. But and then tonight, folks, YouTube live streaming is doing very, very well, because when I'm on the road, I usually have a bandwidth problem. So the sound on YouTube comes through just fine, but the screen will freeze up periodically, and it's because of the bandwidth. Well, when I'm here at home, I got plenty of bandwidth, and we're doing great, and because I can watch it, on the YouTube screen as well as on my live stream, and everything is going well. We're looking good tonight, so we're set to go for a good program. So, anything else you'd like to share with us?
No, I don't think so. I mean, before the show, I was just sharing a little comment with you, and perhaps some of our listeners are experiencing the same, that Alan and I start the day and say, well, let's see what kind of adventures we're going to come across today. And our day ends up, very different than we thought we would. I know you are living that kind of life, because sometimes I call you and you're on the other side of the world.
It's kind of like,
and so I call you and say, where's Waldo?
Where's Waldo this week? Well,
so anyway, if folks are kind of having that adventurous lifestyle every day, that's a signal there, I think.
It's funny. Sometimes I don't know I'm going to pick up and go until a day or two before I do. And part of it is because, my schedule is very flexible. I live kind of a semi-retired life here in Sedona. I don't have a job that holds me down. But yet it is the income from the workshops that basically pays my bills and allows me to do all this. But rarely do I pick up to travel just to travel. It's because I'm going to meet with somebody that's involved or in a process of all this. I mean, even when I went on my 2 trips to Thailand, I'm still in touch with Jason Hill there, and we may see him coming through more in a later period of time. And I had my 4 trips to Hong Kong, and I can't even begin to think how many times I've been to Reno or other places, and I think that's all I'm going to say about where those other places are. But it's usually I'm meeting face to face. And sometimes, in fact, I had, when you send the newsletter out, you always get the critics that are out there. And I had one of those really nasty emails today. And, this guy says, what kind of drugs are you on? Or are you talking about? He says, this is the biggest, crap stuff that I've ever seen. I said, you need to, start telling the truth. And I emailed back to him and I says, well, I do. This is everything that I report comes from tangible sources or scientific research. And that's basically, the stuff that I share in the workshops and a lot of the stuff that is here. I work very hard that when I'm sharing information from you, that they have come from tangible sources, not mystical or etheric sources, like how many grandfathers are out there and how many elders that are out there and who's saying what and where's it coming from, or coming from a channeled message that you can't authenticate. There was a lot of that was coming through. So folks, let me just say this. This is a very real issue for me. I get to work with real people that are real bankers, that are in touch with real people at the processing centers, that are representing, governments that have a real signed intergovernment treaty agreement on the releasing of all these funds. Now, it's important, though, to understand that, and again, I call those the coordinators. They don't micromanage the process, and I don't have any control about how and when or how many funds or when those funds are going to be released or how quickly they will come out. I have no control over that. But I can't, and there's different sources, and you have to look at that. I mean, some of these trusts are very, very large trusts, but yet they have been prevented from being able to move their money. But they're getting very close, and they've expressed to me how and what they're doing, what the logistical process for them to be able to do it. They're very close to having that done. When I say very close, that doesn't mean it's going to happen tomorrow or in a few days. I mean, it could still be a couple of weeks. It could still be a month. But all I'm saying is I'm reporting based on the information that I have at the time, what is very real logistical issues about how close they could be. And it's the same way with the release and the funding of the currencies. I mean, periodically I get these real solid, detailed reports of who, what, where, what the banks are, who their employees are, what they're doing, how the progress they're making, and somewhat of a time frame. So it's really important to know that when I say it's close, I know we've heard that so long and so much that we get sick of that word soon. But the reality is what it means is, and I've used this as an illustration, the picture, the colors are becoming so much more clear, so much more in-depth, so much more focused. And because there's a focusedness on, what I can say is I clearly understand why we've had all these delays. And these delays have always been in our best interest. They're predominantly for safety issues so that we wouldn't have this money stolen from us either prior to or after we put it into our bank accounts. And I'm starting to learn even more about the logistics of this process, and is that there is a possibility that this may take a while and that it will funnel out over a period of time. Now, before I get into that, Blanca, let me come back to you. I want to make sure if there isn't anything else you want to share before I continue about some of the details about, the funding stuff. Is there anything else you want to share with us on that?
No, I don't think so. Dave, I was already in rapture here listening to you. So continue and update us, because it's sometimes it's nuanced what you're saying. To someone who doesn't listen to the energy behind what you're saying, they may think, well, he said that already. But if people really just be present to what you're saying, they can pick up the energy behind your words too. So maybe other folks can kind of practice that kind of listening as well. So please continue, Dave.
Well, I always try to make sure that when I bring information to you, I'm bringing it to you as I understand it at the time. And for a long period of time, for months, a lot of this information was somewhat mysterious or etherical, or it wasn't it wasn't very, very tangible. But in the last 4 and 6 months, it's become, the information is very tangible for me. And that's what I try to report on, because I don't want to be in what is called the hopium trip. Hope, 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 and nothing ever happens. Because some of us, we've been in this for 4 years, and I know some of us, you've been in there for 10 years. I try to be very pragmatic, very practical about it, so you can have a very clear expectation about how you can make your decisions for yourself. I had a little tiny bug there flew by. Oh my gosh. So we have those here in Nevada. I mean, in Arizona. We do, dry climate. We get a little bit few bugs. In fact, I had a huge cockroach in my floor here the other night. So don't get them very often. But my sources, the primary sources that I have, I've got very, very good tangible response. And it's important to understand there are different funding sources. And I've always said that there's 4 groups. There are people like me, the aggregators, and then there are the brokers, and then there are the funders, and then there are the coordinators. And the coordinators would be the governments. And the governments, specifically in the United States, they're going to regulate and control how much money is going to be released. And so on the radio program last night, when I had made the comments that, there I may not be able to do all of this all at once for everybody because, I have over 18,000 names on my email list. Now, a lot of those have fallen off. They've gone by the wayside, but the names are still there. I have about 13,000 names on the list that signed up for people to be, on, wanting to, be a part of the currency exchanges. And I get about 7,000 to 9,000 people that are active every week when I send the newsletters out, and they basically, do that. So now this is really weird. All of a sudden my live streaming has gone offline, and yet here on my source it says we're online, we're good to go. So now, okay, now it's coming back. I don't know what happened there, but why that created. But so I'm always very. There are different sources of funding. There are these very, very large trusts. There are some of them that are involved that get, from government contracts. And then there are other organizations that have these funds. And different funding sources are committed to different parts of it. The trust that I talked to, that I met with a couple of weeks ago, these people are absolutely committed to funding the projects of the people on my list, but they are not committed to funding the currencies. Yet I have other sources that are committed to that. Now, the issue is with the other sources of funding the currencies, we don't know, and I don't know, and I don't know anybody who knows how much they're going to release in round 2, going to do. And I'm just using those numbers as illustrations, okay? I have made the commitment that I will start first with the people who have attended my workshops. They will always be the ones that have first priority. They will always be the ones that will be in line for funding of currencies and funding of projects, okay? All right, so let's see here. I had a text come in, and let's see. Oh, yeah, the video has been a little bit choppy. And so it's kind of in a, it was doing fine earlier. And I've basically taken off most of my stuff that would be creating forms of bandwidth problem. Maybe I'm having a little bit of bandwidth problem on it, but it seems to be, who knows. But on the YouTube, you can always hear the video very well. So, all right. So that's the backdrop. That's the background. That's what's happening on the exchanges for what is there. I can't give you an exact time because I don't know anybody who knows exact time. But all I can say is the detailed reports that I've had come in within the last week, they're showing very, very good progress. They're explaining why it's taking longer. They're explaining why we had the delays. And all I can say is that things are progressing very, very well. But I don't want to put out a false hope thinking that, boy, here it comes and round 1 is done and then boom, you're going to be right there and have all your money. I would say don't quit your day jobs, folks. Don't quit your day jobs. You have to be very patient with this whole process, okay? All right. Okay, so I had let me take care of this. This text here was really quick. I usually have the Jason come on each week, and he just texted me and said he's come down with 103 fever tonight, so he won't be able to come on the program tonight. So let's be giving some thoughts toward him, and also, folks, let's also be giving our thoughts and prayers to the whole situation in South Texas. I mean, that's just devastating. The flooding that has been going on there. And they say that okay, so it's coming back up again. So, well, I think I'm just going to ignore the video on the YouTube tonight because I got to stay focused on what we're going on here. Let me check this one text here that was really quick, and let's see what came through. Okay, Blog Talk is getting choppy on the call-in line. So, okay,
It's intermittent, Dave. It's intermittent. You'll be talking. It's nice and clear, and then for about 2 minutes, 3 minutes, it gets real choppy, and it just gets hard to understand what you're saying. So I'm not real sure if it's because of the YouTube plus Blog Talk or what. But I'm on Blog Talk listening to you, and there's times when it gets choppy.
Okay, it did say that YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming, and as such, viewers will experience buffering. So, well, we'll do what we can. We'll continue. That is here. It says the live streaming is, the health has got there. It's gone off. Let's see if we can, the video. It was good when I started. Okay? The bandwidth was.
Yes, it was.
So, all right. Let's just get on with what's on the program tonight because usually, but it says there's no. Can you guys hear me at all on the YouTube? That's what I want to make sure that you can at least hear me. And then the streaming will probably come back up. So let's see, and then I'll get on with the program here. So let's see. If folks have... I'm sorry, Blanca, go ahead.
Well, before you head on, I mean, you got a little choppy because even I wasn't able to understand when you were kind of telling people how you might start prioritizing folks, and it seemed like you were going to some detail about maybe a particular way that things would go. Anyway, I couldn't tell, but I'm sure people who couldn't understand are sorry they missed that part.
Yeah, I'm back on YouTube again. YouTube is going to go through some buffering, it looks like, tonight. So. Okay, so yeah, but usually the audio always comes through fine on YouTube, but the video goes through buffering and it comes in and out. So, and it's back on. Okay, I think I'm done with that. Okay, are we ready? So should we get on with the program here? I think so. So, okay, 2 programs ago, I had talked about the shift and the change that is taking place in what is called the paradigm of the controllers. We understand that we have a world, there's a conventional world, and then there's a shadow world. And the shadow world is that. It's the world that operates out in the shadows. And it's in the shadow world that a lot of these world controllers control our events. They control affairs. They control our information sources. They control what it is that we receive. And they want to control us. They control the world's money supply. And these controllers have been around a long time. They've been doing this for thousands of years. But as we are here in the 21st century, and in the last, what I would say, maybe 100, 200 years, the primary method, the paradigms that they used for controlling were 2 primary paradigms. One was information sources. They would control the information that came to us. In the last century, basically, they controlled the education system, they controlled the media system, they controlled the newspapers, the TV, the radio, all the news and the information that we had coming into our lives. They controlled the entertainment industry. So all these influences, they controlled them and controlled what was released. And their other paradigm was controlling the world's money supply. They would basically create economies that would rise and would fall, and they would crash economies, and that they would benefit from it. While we saw this real estate crash, the economic crash, and back in 2008, there were millions and millions of people that lost their homes. Their homes were underwater, and yet the controllers amassed billions of dollars through that process because they knew how to make money in a falling economy. But not only that, they eliminated their competition. The big 4 of the banks became bigger and stronger than ever before. And I'm talking about the big 4 here in the United States. And it was also that way in Europe as well. So it's all about a matter of power and control is what it is. Well, the internet is changing that. They never anticipated the internet becoming what it was. They always thought the internet that they would be able to control it and it would only be used for the means of what they wanted. They thought it would be used predominantly for their information sources, for using it as a military source of communication. And then as it began to open up, they thought it would be regulated and stay within the business structure. They never anticipated the internet through commercial, supply and demand, supplying and becoming what it is for us today. The everyday common people being able to share information with each other. And what we are now able to do is that we're able to bypass these controllers of the information sources that they control. All you got to do is watch the mainstream media of how the news sources of what they put out, and you see the slant and the biasness that is there. And then watch the same sources on different stuff that will come through in either on YouTube or basically on Facebook. And you will find that these reports are so contrast. And it's back to, the issues you're wondering, are they seeing the same things that I'm seeing? Are they talking about the same stuff that I'm talking about? Also, what happens, the shadow world begins to be exposed. The shadow world is revealed to us through the internet. So they can't control the information sources anymore, and they're losing that power and control. And what's happening now is that they're also beginning to realize that they're losing the control of the money supply. It doesn't mean that they are not going to continue to be wealthy. They will still be very wealthy as individuals or as organizations. But controlling the economy, that's what we're going to see happen. one of the biggest things that is happening to us right now is the rise of the cryptocurrencies, because we have the ability to move our money out of the central banking system and move it into cryptocurrencies accounts. That means their deposits are being reduced, and then lesser deposits, they have lesser money to loan, which means they don't have as much profits in that situation there. The other situation is that they're losing in money policy issues. They're losing the control that is there because of the power of the internet. And with these funds about being ready to be released, that means also that there are going to be literally billions and trillions of dollars that are going to be put into the hands of everyday people like you and me to release this money out into project funding. It's important to understand that the vast majority of all of the funding sources are saying this is not about us as individuals becoming rich. It's about using us as individuals to move this money around the world to help fix situations and help stimulate a global economy so we don't go into this very desperate economic crash that about the whole world is about ready to go into. Now, yes, we get rewarded very well for participating in that process. But don't expect the fact that you may think that, if you have, 50 billion dinar, that you're going to end up as a multi-billionaire. I just don't think that's going to happen. I think the funding sources may end up putting a limit on how much money you're going to receive personally, but everything else will be committed to project funding. They've been very clear in expressing to me that they are not going to be in the kingmaker business. They are not here to create a new super elite wealthy 1%, but they are here to make sure that you are rewarded very well for participating in this process, and that you are in a position that you get to be relieved of all your personal debts and financial slavery types of issues. That's what's really important. And in my conversations I've had with both of my funding sources, the primary ones, yes, they are in agreement with that. This is about setting humanity free from what has been millennia of financial slavery forms, and about setting the world free from a financial slavery as well. That's what's coming our way. So why is this shift? And those are the paradigms. Those are the old paradigms. And then what I talked about in 2 programs ago is what they are doing, the controllers, they're not going away. Some of them are. The controllers of the old paradigms are really being neutered and minimized. But there will still be individuals, these controllers, that are going to be super wealthy, multi-billionaires and trillionaires. And they have the ability to step into the new technology that is coming our way. And the new technology means we'll be using forms of mind influence and artificial intelligence, using mind control influence. That's the new paradigm that I talked about that they will be moving into. Now, last week I talked on the program and says, how do we get past that? How do we get past these mind controlling, this artificial intelligence means that will be coming our way? Because this artificial intelligence is going to come multiple means. There's multiple ways to do it. And there's multiple ways that they can influence basically how people think and what they receive. Okay? So there is a way to overcome that because, see, it's all energy based. I've shared this many, many times in past programs and in the workshops that we live in a world where everything is based upon energy. We are energy beings. So they can use various forms of new technology of energy to create what are called thought influences into us. But there is a way to overcome that. What also is happening, and I shared this on the program last week, is that Heart Math Institute, as well as others, also comes back to A.R. Borden in his work with, the Labyrinth Group. They have discovered that inside the human heart is this second brain. It's a very, very, very small brain, and for the most part, it's been dormant. It has not been active in humanity at large. There have been individuals who have learned how to activate it. A lot of them, they didn't even necessarily know they were doing it. But we're now starting to understand how it works. We're understanding the science and the technology behind what is happening because we now have the technology where they can basically watch and measure what happens when this heart is activated. And what it does, it produces this quantum energy field. And this quantum energy field is a very, very powerful energy field, but it only gets activated and becomes powerful when it's operated from a certain consciousness. And in the Neruda interviews and in the Wingmakers material, they call it the 6 heart virtues. And you're living from this place. It's a behavior-based energy. It's not a thought process. It's not just good ideas. It's not just something you can be neat and talk about. It is a behavior based that it has to become what is called a habitual behavior pattern coming from your life. And when it's behavior based, what that does is that it activates that very, very small brain, and it produces this deep quantum electromagnetic energy field that becomes like a buffer. It becomes a protection, because what happens is you're focused entirely on the positive things, and you're letting go of anything that might be potentially negative within your life. What are those 6 heart virtues? Gratitude, forgiveness, understanding, humility, courage, and compassion. And when you sum all those up, they basically come summed up in the illustration of love, the power and the energy of love. And I know in the Neruda interviews, they says, well, why don't you describe that as love? Well, I'll say, because the word love has so many different meanings to so many different people. And it's kind of become what we call bastardized in some ways, because it becomes just a sweet little, nice little cliche that says, hi, love, how you doing today? And stuff like that. But the energy based on that, it comes back from these, what is called these heart virtues. They are the things that activate that quantum field of energy that is there, that protects us and keeps us focused. There's a contrast to that, and that's what I want to talk about the program tonight, because it's extremely important that we understand this contrast. The Neruda talks about it in his interviews. It's talked about from Gary Renard in his books, primarily Disappearance in the Universe, which also basically are the cliff notes to A Course in Miracles. Now, in the Course in Miracles, they talk about the term ego consciousness, and Neruda talks about it as separation consciousness. It's also referred to as duality consciousness. Separation consciousness, duality consciousness, they're basically terms, they're basically one and the same. It's the separation consciousness that is the very root problem of all of our problems as a human race. It's when we are thinking in terms of separation that we're creating the conflict that happens within our lives, whether it's individuals or whether it's collectively. At the root of separation consciousness is the energy and the thought process that creates wars, conflicts, strife, fighting, envy, the haves and the have-nots, the I have this, the issues and the addictions to power and control, and the addictions to drugs, and the list just goes on and on and on. Because see, what happens is we live in a universe where I said everything is energy-based. And what happens when this quantum energy field comes out, it's based on what is called string theory energy. Energy comes out as particles of energy, and they become connected in a string, all these particles of energy. And this string theory connection is also what creates the events that we experience in this world that we think that is real. So it's our thoughts that are putting out what is called these memes. These memes are these small particles of energy that comes from our thoughts that creates everything that we experience around us. Energy is designed in our universe to be connected. All the energy of the universe is connected. We're all connected with each other at the energetic level. At the quantum level, everything in the universe is connected. And when we move into separation thought consciousness, we're disrupting the connection. When you disrupt the connection, when you sever the connection of this quantum energy field and this string energy field, you're then setting yourself into a form of consciousness that creates separation. The energy is separated instead of the energy being connected. And this separation consciousness, as I said, is at the very root of everything, of all of our problems. In unity consciousness, what we choose to do is we choose to look at the world, we choose to look at our circumstances, we choose to look at our lives through the eyes of God, which is nothing but perfect love and unity. And we see it as God sees it, instead of seeing it as being separated. What's happening right now is that we're going through a massive shift and change of the energy within our planet. we are moving into a new age, and a new era. And there's a lot of people that I'm finding reports on Facebook and YouTube that are talking about the shifts in the energy that are taking place in our world. And these shifts is creating a greater separation, because the shift in energy is also creating a shift in the consciousness, or the availability of the shift of consciousness in us as humanity. We're waking up. We're waking up to what our world has really been like. We're waking up to what's really taking place in our world. And if you've seen the movie The Matrix, it's when, I forgot the guy's name, he's sitting there with Neo, and he gives them the option between, the red pill and the blue pill. He basically says to him, the world that you see is not the real world that is out there. The world that you experience is not what's really taking place. There is basically an illusionary world that is out there that we as a mass of humanity is not stepping into and taking place in. And that's the illusionary world. And we are now starting to learn that the world that we live in, this world of what we call matter, is not real. It's a holographic illusion. Now, if you think that isn't true, there's science that is backing this up solidly. Because in the movie The Matrix is such a great illustration that basically brings that out, that says there's a matrix world out there that is not the real world, but it's a world of power and control. It's the world that's been pulled over your eyes. It's the world that is influencing you through your thought process, and it's keeping you in this false place. What's extremely important about separation consciousness is the controllers, that is their primary source of keeping us in a slavery form, keeping them in power and in control. On the external issues, they really don't care so much about what happens, only if they can keep us in a position of separation. If they can keep us fighting, arguing, being in disagreement, haves and have-nots, I'm right and you're wrong, if they can keep us in that mindset, if they can keep us in that form of consciousness, they stay in control. They are the ones that get to stay in the power and control because they understand and know that that is the root which creates all of our problems. And as long as we are in situations of focusing on separation issues, then we don't focus on them. It becomes a distraction. Separation consciousness is an illusionary distraction to keep us off guard, off base, out of balance, from being in control of ourselves. Now, if you think this world isn't an illusion, I'm going to share with you about a 1-minute video. And when things of this nature are making its way into the mainstream media, when the mainstream media is putting out a report that scientists around the world are showing us that the world we live in is just a hologram, it's just an illusion, it is not real, then we've made huge progress in there. This is a short video that is from USA Today, and it's about 1 minute long. So when you see that, when USA Today is putting out scientific research that is showing that the whole world is just a hologram and it's not real, that's called Welcome to the Matrix, folks. Welcome to the Matrix, and how it's now starting to go from just the entertainment industry, or just in the shadow world, or just those of us who are called conspiracy folks. It's coming into mainstream media. What does that say to us? How do we make that shift? How do we deal with that in our everyday practical lives? Let me give an illustration. It was over 100 years ago that Albert Einstein showed us through the theory of relativity that time is not real. He basically said that time is basically vertical instead of horizontal. All past, present, and future is happening simultaneously right now. It basically means today we are in a literal time of progressive time, event-based time. We're focusing on the year 2017. But the year 1917 and 2117 are happening right now as well. It's just the fact that we live in this hologram, so it presents to us and gives us this false impression, thinking that time is linear. He brought this to us 100 years ago. And yet we have still not brought that into our mainstream thinking. We live in a world of linear time. We live in a world where we process things from a linear time, but yet linear time is just an illusion. What does it mean? We're living illusionary lives. We're not living lives of truth. Separation keeps us there. Separation creates the problem. When you start letting go of separation, and you start just letting things be, things that you disagree with, you just let them be. Let me give an illustration of our current political situation today. Yeah, Donald Trump's a pretty controversial president, but look at the energy that has gone into fighting him, protesting against him, the violence that is created that is there, the disagreements that they have, the attacks that come upon him. I don't care whether you agree and like Donald Trump or not. That's separation, folks. That is separation at its large form. The fighting, the disagreements, and the difference. Stay there, and then you stay in the illusion. Stay in the separation, and you find yourself, your world, controlled. Stay there, and you will find the controllers continuing to have control over you. Stay there, and you will find these funds will never do for you what you really, truly want them to do. At the end of the day, it's not about the money coming forward. At the end of the day, it's about the shift in heart consciousness as we as a humanity are waking up and moving into higher states of consciousness. Last week, I had talked about a YouTube interview that I had watched, and it came from one of the people that had worked in Area 51, and they had what was called the Looking Glass Project. And the Looking Glass Project was basically a form of time travel. It was basically an ability for them to look into future timelines. Now, how does that work? Well, if all events in a holographic universe are created through the quantum theory, string theory of events, it means that when they're looking into this, they're able to tap into that energy source that shows that goes beyond linear time, steps into vertical time, and they can see the different probabilities. And it's important to know that it's not all exactly pre-programmed. The future isn't. There are different timeline probabilities. There are different potentials that are out there. That even backs up what is called the multiple Earth theory, that you and I can possibly be living in different timelines. And by living in different timelines, even though we can be physically present and you're here listening to this, there may be a whole lot of other things that when you're done watching this video, you may step into another timeline than what I will be in, because we can shift and change these timelines instantly, faster than it's at the speed of thought, is what it is. Because your thoughts creates and puts you in the timeline that you're experiencing. And what timeline do you wish to experience? It's what the collectiveness of humanity creates. I came from an evangelical Christian background. I was taught that way. I went through seminary training there. I lived there for over 25 years. And as those of us in evangelical Christianity, we were basically taught that the Bible was the Holy Spirit-inspired Word of God. And the vast majority of us really fully believed in the book of Revelation. Well, when you read the book of Revelation and you set aside your religious prejudices or your religious beliefs and look at it objectively, it kind of reads like a Stephen King novel. Pretty dramatic, pretty chaotic, pretty horrible, with catastrophic Armageddon types of issues. Is that going to happen? Well, you know, there are scores and scores and hundreds of millions of people around the world that deeply believe that. And because they deeply believe that, then they are creating that as a probable timeline. And it may be that they will experience that world and those events. I choose to not be there. as humanity is waking up, we're beginning to see that there's another timeline. And this is a timeline of moving into a higher state of consciousness, moving into a higher state of peace, moving into a world where we are fixing our problems, where we are clearing up the planet, cleaning the planet, and creating and bringing about basically a utopian society. But the thing is, if you read the Neruda interviews, it says the controllers, they allow that to happen. They understand that is one of the probable timelines, and they allow that to happen. But you can be in this utopian environment and still be artificially controlled as being basically a robot type of a person, because you're not coming from your own heart. It's rising up in the heart consciousness that moves beyond that. When you read the Neruda interviews, it basically talks about what's going to happen over the next 60 years, because this was presented to them because they were able to get beyond the linear time and move into vertical time. And they could see the different probabilities that were there. And in the future probabilities, there are going to be those of us that move into what is called the I am, we are consciousness. We're going to move into what is called the sovereign integral process. We become sovereign and yet integral. We become sovereign beings who are integrated, connected together, no longer in separation, but in total unity consciousness. And what is that at a very practical level? The most important thing is to not judge. Don't make judgments about people who are different than you. As soon as you start judging and saying, I'm better than you, you're less than me, this is more important, what you're saying is not important, I am getting money, I have it, you don't have it. As soon as you create that separation consciousness, judgment is a very, very large part of that. You then basically create that probability of that world coming about for you. In the Bible, in Matthew 7:1, Jesus said very clearly, do not judge. Because in judgment consciousness is where we create the conflict. When you come from this place of the heart consciousness, you come from a place of peace. You come from a place of love. You come from a place of unity. You come from a place of harmony, which is what we all want. That's the world that we want. At the end of the day, of all the things that I've been saying in the last 4 years that I've had this program, to me, there's absolutely nothing more important than you and I understanding what separation consciousness is and how we move beyond that. How we heal that stuff within our hearts. That's extremely important. Money is secondary. Money is just a tool. We live in a holographic universe where we think money is real, and it's our thoughts that makes all this stuff have the appearance and the feeling and the emotions of being real to us. But in the real world, it's not there. It's not truth. When you read Gary Renard's books, you will see the solidness of that statement that I just made to you. That's the whole idea behind the title, Disappearance of the Universe. The universe that we live in, that is just a holographic illusion. When we move into truth, when we move into unity, the holographic universe disappears. It doesn't do it all at once. It's not just boom, click of a button and all of a sudden it's gone. It's a behavior-based process that happens over years and decades as you learn how to refigure, to reformulate your behavior. And you start developing a behavior where you live from that place. And when you live from that place of unity consciousness, of heart virtues consciousness, then you start experiencing the heart virtues life. And what Gary Renard says in his book, that everything, the life we live, it's just a dream. But in the process of moving into what is called our enlightened state, we begin to experience happy dreams. Life becomes happy for you. Life becomes peaceful for you. I've been working on this assertively and aggressively for probably about 7-8 years now. And here's what I'm noticing is I cannot recall or remember the last time that I experienced any form of depression. I really don't even know. I cannot recall the last time that I've had a very deep bout with fear controlling what was happening in my lives. I will momentarily experience some fear, but I'm able to immediately process it, identify it, and it moves away. I rarely experience things of fear. I do not experience things of deep depression. And the other thing is, I can't even tell you the last time that I've had a serious headache. Life flows for me now with a sense of purpose, a sense of meaning, and a sense of abundance. It has a very, what I call, smooth flow of healthiness and wholeness and truth in how I live about my daily lives. There's been massive changes in my personal life just in the last year to year and a half. I recently, at my workshop that I had in Sedona, I had about 5 people that were there that had been to a number of them. Some of them had been there 3 years ago. And independently of them, not even talking with each other, they came up to me and they says, Dave, you're not the same person you used to be. Says, your whole demeanor is more peaceful. Your whole focus is stronger. There's a sense of conviction about who you are and what you're saying, what you're bringing. And there's a real sense of clarity and peacefulness that is coming from you, and it emanates from your being. I had this one lady that she was able to attend, and she's one of these really gifted ladies, and she has this ability to basically see non-physical beings. And she just says, you're just surrounded by this. Your aura has this huge golden glow to it. And you've been surrounded by these deep angelic beings throughout the whole day that you were there in the workshop. It was 2 years ago she was there, and she said, I had these 2 10-foot tall Palladians as my bodyguards, and they were with me all the time. And I asked her, so what'd you see this time? And she said, the whole wall behind you was just loaded with glowing beings, angelic and galactic beings that were just glowing. And it was created this whole energy that was in the room. And she said, I could sense it, I could feel it, and I could even see the energy flowing throughout everybody within the room. That's what happens at most of the workshops, folks, because you bring the energy. You're bringing your higher sense of consciousness, and we're coming together in a unified thought process. And what I hear from people over and over and over again at the workshops is the energy that is there. It's strong, it's vibrant, it's meaningful, there's purpose, there's coherence to it, and there's intelligence to it. I hear that, I don't know how many times. Scores, if not hundreds of times, I've heard that over the 3 years I've been doing the workshops with the thousands of people that have attended. And why I express that it's so important for you to show up and come is because you capture that. It solidifies this process for you. You get to experience with other like-minded people that this is not just about money. Money is a tool. This is about us rising up as a form of humanity, as a collective group of people, and creating shifts and changes at the consciousness level to our world. We are the ones, we're not the only ones, but we are some of them that are getting to be the trailblazers to lead the way to a very healthy shift and change. So, it all comes down to the power of our thoughts and how important the power of our thoughts are. And it's very, very important that we all get in touch with our thoughts. Now, I want to share with you a second video. This is only about 4 minutes long, but it comes out of the movie, What the Bleep Do We Know? So let's take a look at this video.
It leads naturally to wonder, are people affecting the world of reality that they see? You betcha they are. Every single one of us affects the reality that we see, even if we try to hide from that and play victim. We all are doing it.
Just tell me where you are. Good. But hurry with it, please, because these models are giving me a headache.
10 minutes.
Mr. Emoto became terribly interested in the molecular structure of water
and what affects it. Now, water is the most receptive of the four elements. Mr. Emoto thought perhaps it would respond to non-physical events. So he set up a series of studies, applied mental stimuli, and photographed it with a dark field microscope. This first picture is a picture of water from the Fujiwara Dam. And this picture is the same water after receiving a blessing from a Zen Buddhist monk. Now, in this next series of pictures, Mr. Emoto printed out words, taped them to bottles of distilled water, and left them out overnight. This first photograph is a picture of the pure distilled water, just the essence of itself. These subsequent photographs, as you can see, are each different. This is the chi of love. And we move along here to thank you. And you can see where he taped that to this bottle here. But if you read Japanese, you already knew that. Now, Mr. Emoto speaks of the thought or intent being the driving force in all of this. The science of how that actually affects the molecules is unknown, except to the water molecules, of course. And it's really fascinating when you keep in mind that 90% of our bodies are water.
Makes you wonder, doesn't it? If thoughts can do that to water, imagine what our thoughts can do to us.
Absolutely. Thought alone can completely change the body.
Most people don't affect reality in a consistent, substantial way because they don't believe they can. They write an intention and then they erase it because they think that's silly. I mean, I can't do that. And then they write it again and then they erase it. So time average, it's a very small effect. And it really comes down to the fact that they believe they can't do it.
So you see there in that it's a 4-minute segment out of the movie What the Bleep Do We Know? I share that in the workshops to use as an illustration of understanding the power of our thoughts. There's also another very good book that's called Virus of the Mind. Virus of the Mind by Richard Brody. And and I'm surprised there hasn't been much follow-up to what he wrote, because he wrote that book about 19 years ago. And he talks about the science of memetics. Memes. It's a new field of science that is coming out. And what these memes are, as I mentioned earlier, when we have thoughts, our brain and our mind literally puts out these very, very small micro particles called memes out into our environment. And it's very similar to a cell phone communication. We get this wireless communication on our cell phones, and we have this wireless communication that is going on around us all the time. Everywhere around the world, there's all forms of wireless communication. We don't see it, we don't physically feel it, but yet it has an impact upon us, and it can come through our phone and the modem, and then we hear it as language or video, whatever it is that we want to see. Well, the mind does the same thing. The mind produces these memes, and these memes are what create the quantum field that you experience. The memes have the ability. If you're a person who's negative, you're attacking, you're in deep separation, you're in contention, you're in strife, you're in fighting, you're living in separation, then you are creating those types of memes. And you're creating the life that you are experiencing. If you're coming from the place of the heart virtues and you're living that as a behavior-based lifestyle, those are coming forward and producing the memes that you are producing. And those memes are what are creating the world around you that you're going to experience. Of all the stuff that I'm doing and all the currency exchange issues, at the end of the day, money is a tool. And the money is to be used to set us free from the slavery that we had, that has been imposed upon us, so that we can step into a form of freedom. That we would have the time and the resources and the energy to create the life that we want. What's extremely important in this whole process, if you want to be a part of it, at the very essence of it is one very important issue. You have to have a desire to change. If you don't have a desire to change, if you don't see a need to change, or if you are afraid of changing, then you will stay in the illusionary world of separation consciousness, and that will be the life that you'll continue to experience. But if you have a desire to change, if you have a strong will and a passion that you want to grow, you want to shift, you want to evolve, you want to have a better life, just that desire and that passion will start producing the thoughts and producing the memes that will bring about the life that you want. I like to say that my own life for the last 8 years has been a living illustration of that. See, up until about 6-8 years ago, life was just functional for me. I did a lot of good things. I experienced being a senator, a state senator, but deep down inside, life was affecting me. I wasn't controlling it. And I was just kind of getting along, struggling along, and from day to day and month to month and year to year, and wanting to have good experiences in my life, but not understanding why I was experiencing what I was experiencing. And it just didn't seem to have this issue of being in harmonious flow of everything that I'd heard that was possible. And then I went through a moment where I had a crisis moment in my life, and it really woke me up. And I realized, I don't want this life anymore. And that created the shift, the start, where it created a desire for me to want to change. And I was amazed how for the next 2 years, I went on an extremely fast track of my own shift and change. Books would find me. It was what I needed exactly at that moment. I would read this book. It would help me understand. It would assist in my awakening process. I'd finish the book, and then within a week, the next book would come around, and it was exactly what I needed for the next book. I would spend time watching videos on YouTube and stuff that would come off of Facebook, and I would do my research and spend my time doing that, and it just kept feeding and feeding everything that I was desiring and wanting on the inside, and I started experiencing the change. I started experiencing the shift. I started experiencing things moving in a harmonious manner. And everything that I have been through, all the people that I associated with my past, were learning steps, opportunity steps of growth, where I wouldn't be where I am today if I had not gone through that period of time. And here we are today. I have the opportunity now to be assisting you and leading us in our own shift and change. And it's not about just receiving the money. It's about creating the new harmonious, sovereign, integral consciousness that we're bringing about on our earth. In the Wingmakers material, James Mahu is the originator of it, and he has a couple interviews. And in one of the interviews, he talks about this heart virtues behavior pattern, that over the next 20 to 30 years, there's going to be between 15 and 20 million people here on this planet that will move into this and develop this as a habitual lifestyle. And they will be the people that are producing the memes that will create the ability to move into a greater shift and change for all of us in humanity. Here's what's interesting, not only what Mahu talks about, but also what Dr. Neruda talks about. These memes that go out into our environment, they have the ability to shift and change DNA of people who are in your close, approximate environment. And that's what John Brody, in his book Virus of the Mind, refers to. He says these memes that are being produced are like viruses, and we pick them up from each other, just as you pick up a virus from your surrounding environment. You pick up mind viruses. And based on the environment that you are associating with, that is the mind virus that you will pick up from others if you are not living from this place of this unified heart consciousness. See, I choose to live my life from a place of heart consciousness. And what I'm also doing, I'm choosing to minimize conflicts in my life. If there are people that I'm in conflict with, I'm not saying that they're bad people. I'm not saying that. It's just where they are at that point in time in their life. But if I'm running into people that are arguing and fighting with me about what's going on in this whole, exchange process, what I do, I stop and I evaluate. And it says, is this something that I'm supposed to stay here? And if I find that they're creating a lot of conflict in me, and in essence, I'm finding I'm arguing with them in my mind, I leave. Because I find if I'm arguing with them in my mind, I'm not here to judge them as individuals, but I am here to make a self-evaluation that this is not healthy for me if I want to continue to grow. If I'm going to be arguing with them in my mind, then I'm creating separation consciousness memes in myself. And I'll keep myself there. And it may be that I am not at a place in my own growth and development to be able to rise above that. And so that's the evaluation that I do. I'll stop and I'll take a look and it says, can I rise above this? And most of the time I can. Because, folks, when you're in this business of doing what I'm doing and you put out these newsletters, man, I get these deep, vicious attack emails every week. I had one today. The guy was just vicious. But it caught me at first, and I found myself arguing in my mind with them, and I stopped and I said, wait, what do I want to do? How do I want to respond to this guy? So instead of choosing to continue to live in separation with him in my mind, I chose to come into a place of unity. And I says, all he is doing is reflecting his own state of his unconsciousness. He's reflecting his own need of his pain. He's reflecting his own misunderstanding because he's creating words and scenarios that are not true, and he hasn't done his research. And really what it is, it's a reflection of his own cry to say, please love me. Because it's becoming a projection of what's coming from the inside of himself. You see, how we see other people, how we view other people is first and foremost a reflection of a mirror of what's happening on the inside of us. If you find yourself judging another, if you find yourself arguing and fighting with another, if you're able to stop and deeply go within, you find that you're arguing and fighting with yourself because your perception of them and how you're viewing them is something that's coming from deep within. That's where we have the opportunity to shift and change. That's where we have the opportunity to move into positive environments. Now, when I say that I'm going to remove myself from other people, it's extremely important that I don't get into a separation of thinking that I am better than them. It's just that at that moment, it's best for me to, if I want to stay in a very positive, high vibrating, high consciousness, heart consciousness aspect, then I may need to temporarily remove myself from something that's creating conflict for me. And as I grow, as I become stronger, and as I mature, then the next time around, it may not be an issue with that person. It takes a lot of self-evaluation. And one of the most important things about separation consciousness is that nobody else can create that for you. Nobody else forces you to go into separation consciousness. Only you do that for yourself through your choice of perception. You choose to perceive whether or not you want to be in separation or you want to be in unity. Now, those choices are not necessarily conscious choices. They're mostly subconscious choices. You and I don't go out and consciously choose, I'm going to be in separation and I'm going to argue and fight with you. No, for the most part, it's a subconscious reaction. And what it is, it's a reflection of telling us what is happening on the inside of us. And it's a reflection to let us know that this is an area that you need to improve in your life. It's the desire to grow, the willingness to shift, the willingness to change, the willingness to look at yourself and not see it out of fear that becomes the instrument and the catalyst that brings about the shift and change that we want for ourselves and the shift and change that we want collectively. There's the old saying is, if you want to change the world, you change yourself first. Change yourself and you will change the world that you experience. So, I'm going to take a look at my notes, make sure I covered everything that I wanted to cover tonight. I think I got it. So, Miss Blanca, how are you doing there? I think I am ready to be done with my section of the program tonight, and would love to hear your comments. And they're always so wonderful and so great. So,
well, gosh, Dave, you said a mouthful here. Very, very important, inspiring, powerful concepts, and but I think the major headline here is the fact that, and I think most of your listeners, many of them, realize that we do live in this sort of hologram of deception, some people call it. Some people call it the matrix. Some people call it the false reality. A lot of people are getting their heads around this. And I think with the shifting in the energy, as you're saying, that we have the grand opportunity to shift out of that false reality. And then much of what you talked about today was how to get out, how to exit the matrix and create something new and real for ourselves, because we start with ourselves first, but then we'll see it play out in the universe. And is that kind of how you're seeing this work in your life?
Absolutely. It's always self-responsibility. You can never blame somebody else, because as soon as you blame somebody else, you've moved into the victimization role, that I'm being a victim of what others are imposing upon me and not taking responsibility for your own self-decisions. It's always, always, always a self-decision. And you can never, ever play the role of a victim, because the victimization role is a part of the holographic universe. But the heart consciousness world does not have victims. It has proactive people that are willing to shift and change. And as we shift ourselves, we then, again, it came out of the Neruda interviews. It comes out of Brody's book, Virus of the Mind. We literally shift and create and put these memes out there. And the memes can shift and change DNA in the people that associate with us. We can have the ability to shift and change others through the powerful thought process of unity consciousness.
Right. That's, of course, if they're also desiring this.
Yes.
And this is another very big, I think, key idea you're presenting here about the decision and the desire, the will and the passion for change. And to start with your heart virtues, for one. I mean, if people want to work with those, which you name for us, the appreciation or compassion or forgiveness, humility, understanding, valor, and people can practice, because it is a behavioral discipline, is it not? Practice yes. One of those, two of those, all of those. But what I really enjoyed about what you said is that as you face in that direction and you set that desire, that then answers start coming your way, thought forms start coming your way that will actually spur you towards that end, spur you towards that direction that you said you wanted. Isn't that what you were saying?
Absolutely, because see what you're doing that from a subconscious thought level. You are creating the environment that you want at the subconscious level. And it was really interesting what A.R. Borden, part of the Labyrinth group, what he had to say, that through their research is the conscious mind only produces and processes about what are 15 to 20 data bits of information per second. But the subconscious mind does 70 to 80 million data bits of information per second. So the subconscious mind is always processing, analyzing, looking, and creating. The question is, what do we allow to come up to our conscious level? And it's at the conscious level that our ego gets in the way and shuts down the desires of the soul, the higher consciousness issues that want to come from within us. And so if we start producing at the conscious level all these positive memes, it integrates down into the subconscious and it brings all of that positive stuff out. And that then is what is creating, the quantum, reality of these quantum, strings that creates the things that we experience.
Yes. And it's what's really cool, at least what we were talking about experiencing, is that there is definitely a shift in the energy. And it's almost like, okay, get your surfboard and get on this energy, get your heart virtues, get your desires heading in the right direction, because there is a wonderful wave of energy that will support this particular stance, that will support this particular way to aim to live one's life. Have you sensed that shift as well with the energy?
Absolutely. And, it's not only do I experience it, I have other, that are very, very gifted people that either they can, read my auras, they can sense the energy around me, or I have a couple really masterful Reiki workers that can totally feel the energy field. And I have one of them, and I'll mention her name, it's Wanda. She's always at all my workshops, at most of them. She's a master Reiki worker. I've been working with her for over 3 years, and she is the one that just says, your whole energy field in your body is changing. And the real shift and change came after the motorcycle accident. It was like I went through a complete upgrade of what happened at my own energy at the soul level. And she just said, I think it was about a month or so after the accident, I had a session with her, and she just says, Dave, I don't know what it is, but you're a totally different person energetically. Your whole complete energy field has shifted and changed. And she says, it's always very positive. There's shifting and changing and positive growth that's taking place in you. And, I said for 58 years of my life, I didn't live that way. But for the last 5 to 8, I have been. And I like to say that I think my life is an example of it to all of us. And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm here, is because I get to come from not just a theoretical position. I get to come from a place of example and say, this works. This stuff works when you do it. Do it, practice it, and it works. And it brings about the life that you want for yourself.
Well, the nice thing that I can say, just, having attended several of your workshops and maybe even getting the chance to go to the one that's coming up in Orlando, is that many of the people who attend the sessions are pretty far down the path in terms of their own work, whether they use this Heart Virtues, or whether they use Course in Miracles, or whatever practice they're using. And so it's a wonderful place to be in an audience of, 30, 60, 70, 20 people who are resonating at this particular frequency. I told you it's almost like a tonic to sit there. And then the conversations that you have, I mean, they're very meaningful conversations, topics that you wouldn't necessarily have over the fence with your neighbor. But still, it's a wonderful experience. And so I think that's part of what's pretty cool about the workshops. And then we get to kind of, like you say, influence each other because of the frequencies that we're carrying.
I'm always amazed at the quality of the people that show up. The vast majority of them are people that are on that process of shifting and changing and moving in their own sense of consciousness and creating improvements in their lives. And they get it. The vast majority of them understand it's not about the money. It's about, first and foremost, about what are the shifts and changes that you're going to bring with this money coming about. And the money is just a tool, is all that it is. There's always exceptions. There's always some that come about the money, but then they end up getting exposed to the other stuff. I've had that, a lot of stories of that, of people said they first came with, the intention about, I want to learn about this money. I want to have some money. And they get there and they say, oh my gosh. And it shifts and changes their lives. It becomes the catalyst for their own desire to change because they get it and they see this is a whole lot more than just about money. So, yeah.
Right. Quite interesting. Now, so again, many, at least the folks that I've met are already on their path and understand this. But too, there may be some people who are attracted to your show or to what you have to say that are new and maybe are just starting to consider these things and some of these terms that we're using, ego consciousness or duality consciousness or things that maybe that they're just starting to learn about it, and rather than getting frustrated or turned off, or maybe even going to judgment, because sometimes when we feel a little bit overwhelmed, we do that, to do what you were encouraging them to do, to say, well, you're hearing these things, then desire to learn more about them, or desire to get some understanding, or desire to get some inspiration, or go to my workshop, and it'll just happen through osmosis.
No, it's not well, you could say it's osmosis, but it's, they're picking up the DNA that's coming from everybody,
Yes.
Yeah, because it's a collective issue. It's a collective issue. That's why,
yes.
and that's one of the reasons why.
It's like a frequency.
Yeah.
The frequency band that they connect with, yes.
It is. You see, so when you attend, you're basically picking all that up from everybody that's around you. And that's the benefit of being in a physical presence with other people that are like-minded, and it's creating that ability to have expansion in your own life. And, and that's why I express this as, folks, you want to come. You really want to come. And on a little side note, it says, if money's tight for you folks, I have scholarships available. Just go to the website, read down there, and in the one coming up, a week from, Saturday in Orlando, I have plenty of room still. I have lots of room. If you want to be there, and if you show up, and as long as I have room in the room, you get to come in. And, I've had one guy that says, I live on Social Security, I have minimal money, I'm going to have to drive for 5 hours, and I don't have any money. And I said, just show up. Just show up and pay what you can. If it's $5, pay $5. But you have to register. You do need to register, because I need to know how many people I'm going to have in the room, so I don't end up, having to turn people away, because, I need to know when I'm sold out. But I want you to be there if you want to be there. And the vast majority of all you can afford to pay the full price. And understand that when you do that, it's about expansion. It's about taking the concept of money and being expansive with their money. I don't need to go into details, but all I know is that in the last 2 months, I have literally given away thousands and thousands of dollars to friends of mine who had need. And they were in need, and they said, I need this. And I said, well, what do you need? And I gave it to them. I didn't even think twice about it, because I learned that if I'm expansive with my thoughts about money and willing to release it and send it out, it creates the cycle of giving where it comes back to me. If I'm living in a place of lack, of want and need, there's a very high probability your thoughts and the memes that you're creating around money are restrictive and lacking and very poor self-image issues. Expansiveness of money creates expansiveness of money in your own life. It expands. Money's energy. That's what it is. It's a flow of energy. And so if you're willing to be expansive, you know what you need to do, but always be willing to give something away. Don't hold on to it. Don't get tight. And what's extremely important, I'm amazed at literally the thousands of people on my list who say, well, I'll give the money away when I get it. No, you should start giving it now, because you're setting the consciousness of being expansive with what you have. And then what comes expands even more. And it doesn't quit. It doesn't stop. And so, but if you're restrictive now, and you're going to exchange these currencies, it will not take very long that you'll be in restriction again, because that's what you're producing in your life. That's the energy that you're producing. Those are the thought memes that you're producing. Be expansive with your money, and trust the fact that there's a God of the universe out there that is always wanting to be expansive with you. That's what I'm learning. And I am literally giving away thousands and thousands of dollars where I didn't have the means to do it before, and I do now. And the money just shows up. It shows up in various means, in various ways. Let me give a little example where I've talked about it. It says, yes, I took some of my, I don't have a lot of money, folks. I don't. I am not a wealthy person. I live basically from month to month, from workshop to workshop. But it's very expansive for me. I don't hesitate on giving stuff away when people tell me that they have a serious need. These are the people that are my friends or that are close to me. But I have taken some of my, what I would call reserve money, and I moved it out of the bank and I put it into the cryptocurrencies. I've made $700 in just the last 3 days. $700 in just 3 days. I have had, in just 3 days, almost a 12 to 15% return on my money in just 3 days. Now, and it's just sitting there. And I've got room now where I call it, house money. So if it goes down, I can let it go down for 3 or 4 days. And it will probably do that because it cycles through. But these cryptocurrencies, folks, they're exploding. You don't need to look at them as forms of investment if you don't want to. You don't have to do that. But if you've got $5,000 or $10,000 sitting in a checking account, and it's just sitting there and it's getting less than 1% interest per year, move it into a cryptocurrency account. Pick up a couple extra $1,000 that you can give away and be expansive with. So, okay, so much for that. What else do you have for us?
Well, another thing that I think would be interesting for the listeners, of course, if they listen to this again, they'll probably hear some things because it was chock full of very good information. But one of the things that we can meditate on, and I aim to do so as well, is all the things you talked about, and you did some linking to this currency exchange, but it's well worth for people, I believe, to think about how does what Dave shared with us link to this experience of the currency exchange that we're looking to experience, to see come forth. And some of the things that pop up in my head is we can choose to see this currency exchange as a very high frequency event.
Yes, that's true.
As you said, it's going to be an aspect of our freedom and to also assist others out of their slavery. So that's a very, very high frequency endeavor. Also, it is opposite of the energy of the matrix.
Yes.
So this is another way to look at it. So the whole frequency thing, I think, in all these things that you're sharing about the heart virtues, about practicing unity consciousness, and about being focused on looking for our answers, I think all this links very powerfully to this whole currency exchange that we want to see come forth.
On the note of the matrix, let me take a little side note and make some comments here. I've mentioned this to you, Blanca, and I might have mentioned this on the air, but I don't know how much detail I've gone into it. I have become acquainted with this absolutely wonderful lady, and her name is Sophia Stewart. Sophia was the originator of the Matrix series. In 1981, she wrote a book called The Third Eye. And I forgot their names. It's the Wachowskis or Wachowskis or whoever it is, that did the Matrix. They were the Wachowskis that were the producers. She wrote the book in 81, and it was about 1985 or 86. They had asked for some ideas for a comic strip. She sent them her book. And the next thing you know is the Matrix movie comes out, and she's shocked because that's everything that she talks about in her book. The whole theme, the issues. They basically took the first Matrix movie from her book that she never heard from them again. She has since, taken legal action that is on it, and it's taken a long time, and it's not totally settled. But she was recommended, go find, a government prosecutor, and the prosecutor says, have the FBI investigate this. And the FBI did the investigation, and they came back to her and they said, there's absolutely no doubt, no question to us that they basically took the ideas from your book and they violated your copyrights, is what they had done in using your book for their movie. Well, the 3 movies have produced so much revenue that her royalties, if they were to pay her, would be over $1 billion. And so what's happened is none of the courts or the judges or the prosecutors want to touch it. They all left. Her attorney left. The prosecutor wouldn't touch it. The judge left because, and I think what she said as it came down to was they were so scared of making a ruling on that much money, they felt that they probably wouldn't be alive if they ruled in my favor. There'd be cabal type of people that would come after him and get rid of him. They were just flat out scared to take on the case. She has continued with this for a period of time. Now, I'm telling this to you as she told it to me. I talked with her on the phone last week. And she said, I finally had 2 judges make a ruling, 2 federal judges make a ruling in my favor. And I now have a $1 billion lien on Warner Brothers that is legally filed. And AT&T is wanting to buy Warner Brothers. And what she said, and I'm explaining, I haven't researched this, but I'm explaining it as she explained it to me. Because of the lien that I have on Warner Brothers, AT&T can't buy Warner Brothers until they pay me off. So that's the latest. But she did say that, you know, the whole Matrix series was a part of an inspiration that came to her. And it's all about the fact that the world isn't real. The world is just a hologram. We've had the wool pulled over our eyes of understanding what this world is. And all three of the movies, you know, that's the intention behind it. And there's another part to that story that I'll get into some other time and later. But I've developed a good friendship with her. And Sophia, honey, I hope you're watching this tonight, because this fits into the discussion that we had that would be very helpful for you. And so send me an email, send me a text, or call me on the phone, Sophia, if you're watching this, or you're going to watch it on archived in the next week or so. And if not, I'll give you a call. But it's just interesting to develop the relationship with her, and she has been basically even exonerated now by the courts, saying yes, she is the mother of the Matrix movies. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's very, very awesome.
Yeah. Let me tell you another interesting thing. She was also the inspiration behind the Terminator series. And if you follow the Terminator movies, what is it? It's about artificial intelligence beings that are so strong, the humans can't tell the difference between the artificial intelligence being and the real being. They can't tell the difference. The dog can, but the humans can't. And she said the Terminator series were the precursors to the Matrix series. The Matrix series was a sequel to the Terminator series when you understand the message behind the movies. The first one was there's an artificial intelligence world that's coming our way that's going to be so strong that most people won't even know that they're artificially intelligence controlled. And secondly, we live in a Matrix world that is allowing that to happen. And she was the originator of the thoughts behind both of those series. So.
Very interesting.
Yeah. And
well, the other thing too, I mean, people may say that this is, all kind of new and all, but if they do some research into like the Nag Hammadi texts that were found, or the Book of Enoch, it's this theme about a false reality, a false universe. It's a very powerful theme. The interesting part, at least in our current experience, and what at least I know you and I are part of this, is that we're waking up to that, and we're given the tools to start building the new, which is a very exciting place to be. And I believe that then, as a collective, that's why we're seeing this possibility for the currency exchange start to emerge, because that's part of the new reality we're creating. As you say, that will be some tools that we're bringing to our assistance to actually start creating the new reality.
The message isn't new. It's always been there through our spiritual and religious masters. Jesus clearly understood that the world was a holographic world.
Yes.
So did Buddha. Both of them. They clearly understood that. And it was a very central part of their messages. But humanity didn't pick it up because we were kept, with the wool pulled over our eyes. We were kept in this illusionary state. We were kept in a world of separation. As long as we stayed there, we continued to live out the Matrix as though the Matrix was real. And what's happening now, we've gone through a shift in an age and time that we're waking up. The collective are waking up. It's not just a few of the spiritual masters that are waking up and telling the message. It's masses and everyday people like me that's sharing it with thousands of people. And this is not an isolated message. It's happening out there with millions, which tells us it's time. It's time for us to wake up and change our lives. And I'm here to say, you have a choice. What are you going to do with your life? I am going to say, if you choose to stay in the separation consciousness, then you will find that life's going to become very disjunct for you. Because, see, the energy of the environment, the energy of the universe, the energy in our galaxy, what's called, the electromagnetic energy of our world, the Schumann resonance is what measures it. That is changing. And so as we shift and change with the energy change, we move in flow, we move in conjunction with it. If we resist the energy change, then you're going to find yourself energetically out of balance with the world around you. And the world around you will become a world of greater conflict, greater frustration, greater war, greater misery, greater problems, because you're energetically out of balance with the universe. You're energetically out of balance with the flow of reality. You're energetically out of balance with God. And that's the best way to say it. And there is a time that we as a collective began to wake up, and that was the shift in energy. I mean, the shift in the ages that we're going through right now. We're living in the very beginning of this shift. Because, 80 to 100 years from now, our world is going to be so different. Because there will be millions and millions of us that brought about the energetic shift and change to touch the masses. So, okay, anything else you want to share with us?
As you were talking, it did inspire another thought. Oh, yes, as you were talking about the AI, and you did make kind of like a comparison and saying that there's two directions this timeline can go, either in the direction of AI and to where that's more and more part of one's reality, and then towards the shift of, and the term you used was sovereign integral, which means someone that has realized that part. Some people call it God, and some people call it Source, Creative Universe, and is actually living that. I think you said looking through the eyes of God, and also embracing what you call the unity consciousness, that we all are part of this life aspect. And so it occurred to me that you also shared that the matrix, or the holographic universe, is a very programmed reality, and that the controllers are the ones who control it through media, entertainment, the financial, educational, etc. So it makes sense that if one continues to plug into that reality, it's only going to get more programmed.
Yes.
And the next program is AI.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the next program. And so rather than go into fear about it, which is part of the matrix, right? That energy is part of the matrix. Just be resolved and say, okay, if you're going to solidify into that program, that's not my journey.
Yes. In fact, what you just described is what takes place in the 5th interview of the Neruda interviews. He basically says we are moving into what is called human 3.0. Human 1.0 was basically the Homo erectus, the caveman era. Human 2.0 has been the Homo sapien era, and with lots of upgrades through the thousands and thousands of years. And he says, but we are right now moving into 3.0. And 3.0 will have two versions, the artificial intelligence version and the sovereign integral version. And the sovereign integral version are those of us that are going to choose to live from the heart virtues, the heart consciousness. And it takes a conscious work and effort to do that. Don't think that you can just flip a switch or read a book and then all of a sudden you're there. No, it's a behavioral change. And Neruda says, yes, this artificial holographic universe is a program. It's a computerized program that we have been placed into, and it's like a uniform that has been placed on top of us that gives us our sense of what is real and what is not. But it's all a holographic illusion of a computerized program that we have been stuck within. And we've been stuck within it for millennia of time. And this is the opportunity for us as a collective to break free from this holographic computerized program that's been placed upon us. Moving into the true essence of who we truly are as sovereign integral beings, that as a divine essence in all of us. It takes time. It takes work. It takes diligent and vigilant work. You have to be willing to do it. And it all starts with a desire to change. When you have the desire to change, you start creating the momentum for the change to come in your life. Okay, anything else before we go on to the callers?
Well, you and I can continue talking about this for days.
I know.
Because we're living it.
Yes, we are.
But I think we should, see if some callers want to dial in. If you give them the number and call in, they may have some questions about the currency exchange, or maybe some thoughts about what we talked about. So maybe we should do that. Absolutely.
Folks, if you want to call in, if you got some comments or you got some questions, the number is 515-605-9356. Again, the number is 515-605-9356. That number is on my website. And then you press 1 on your touch-tone phone, and that brings up a little hand on our studio here that lets us know, yes, you'd like to come on the air. So Blanca is going in to basically screen the first caller, and so I'm just going to go right on straight into the second one. You're coming on live, and your area code is 702, and that's what I have here, area code 702. You're on the air. What can I help you with tonight?
Yeah, hey, Dave. Quick question for
Sure.
you. I am fortunate enough that I'm in a couple of round one private placements with real strong groups, and so that's great for me. But I've also recommended that a couple of friends who are not in round one go to your workshops, which they have, and so I kind of wanted to get an update from you. You talked about it a little bit, but if you were to put some kind of a percentage on it, what do you feel like are the chances that those people would actually get the benefit of a round two currency exchange?
It's really hard for me to do that, because things can shift and change that I have absolutely no idea. But as of now, with what I know now, funding of projects, 90 to 95%. That's solid. Exchanging currency to have for your own personal use, probably in the 50 to 70% range.
Okay, well, at least that's a good indication now.
Yeah.
Just a final thing for you on the round one, strong groups and good placements. What do you feel like for the month of September? Are you feeling like real strong about that, or
yes,
or is that kind of up in the air too?
Yeah, let me go back though to the previous statement. When I say 90 to 95% of funding projects, because I've met face to face with the people who have the money and they want to do that, but they are committed to giving some personal money that's going to help you get out of debt, money that's going to set you free from a form of slavery, but they're not committed to giving you millions and billions of dollars for your currency. They're not on that. So there is a very high probability you're going to be able to fund projects and have financial relief for yourself to be free. That is a very high probability. And that's based on what I know at this time and what they've told me. Now, for next month, here's the issue. I am familiar with the new exchange that took place in the first round with a very small group of people. It only has around 40 or 50 people in it, based out of Reno. And based on what my sources were telling me, this was supposed to happen a week or two ago, but what they found out is they're taking every single individual that's in there, doing massive compliance checks, security and background checks on them. They're setting up brand new bank accounts for each individual so that the individual put money into a bank account that is basically a private account, and it won't show up on the bank screen at your local branch. And so that takes time. That takes time to do that for each and every individual. And so and I think that is probably going to be a pattern that we're going to find following from the vast majority of all the first round fundings. And there are others in some of the first rounds that has already happened, or they've submitted all the paperwork, all of the compliance information, and they've had the compliance and the background checks already done on them. But when you're talking in round two, 10,000 people, it takes a long time to do that kind of work for 10,000 people. And that's why I'm saying this may get parceled out over a process in a period of time, and it's not something we can do all at once. But for the round one, there's a very high probability of next month based on the information that I have right now. So, okay.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Dave, for the update, and we'll catch up with you again next week.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Okay. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Going to go to the next caller. His name is Kirk from area 650. Kirk, you're on the air, and what can I help you with tonight?
How are you, Dave?
Good.
So I wanted to make a couple of comments on the Windmakers. I did, with your encouraging, listen to almost all of it. I haven't finished it. It takes a long time to kind of absorb
It does.
all of that. But it presents such a compelling case for the different ways that this has stayed the way it is. That's what I'm going to say. The idea of the different groups that are actually out there. I thought probably one of the more interesting things was the people who have been presented via that as the controllers. He says, we've needed that. We actually needed to have that in there to kind of buffer things against what could happen with kind of the randomness of self-interest of governments and of other things. And that we shouldn't always look at them as being bad for having done that. They do believe in power and they want the power, but there's actually been a purpose to having that. Now, you talk about the new control paradigm coming. How do you see that the role of those people continuing on or not under this new control paradigm?
You brought up a very good point. We have a tendency to take the controllers and think of them as evil. That's separation consciousness. If you come from a unity consciousness, you begin to just let it be, and you realize that all they're doing is coming from a place of their own fear. They want power and control to basically pacify the fear of others controlling them and imposing upon them a life that they don't have. And they have the money and the resources and the power to have that power and control over others. And in the Neruda interviews, he says they see themselves as having a very positive impact upon the world, even though we don't necessarily maybe like its outcome. And the new ones, I think it's just going to be the same thing. It's a motivation that comes from deep, it's what A Course in Miracles calls deep unconscious fear and guilt. And out of this deep unconscious fear and guilt, they have physical resources to control things around them. And so they use it to do that. They use it to keep themselves pacified, to keep themselves in what they think is a peaceful state, or what they think is a harmonious state without others controlling and imposing their lives upon them. And that's basically what they're doing. And the artificial intelligence is just a new means to do that.
Yes, I thought that was a very interesting point you made regarding that. How the walking asleep.
Yes.
People living with, in essence, an artificial construct, but acting and thinking it's completely real, and not realizing that they are walking asleep.
Yes.
And
the artificial intelligence is going to be presented in a manner that becomes very, very, what's the word I'm looking for? Tantalizing and compelling. It's like they're going to give you this technology ability to do things in your life that you've never been able to do before. They're going to be able to put, an artificial intelligence eye in your head that you could see things that you could never otherwise see. You can comprehend things you would never otherwise comprehend. So they'll make it look like it's very tantalizing, very alluring, and very desirable, but underneath it is still the ability to influence your thoughts. See, and it keeps them, and it keeps them at bay.
That's very amazing.
See, and it's designed to keep humanity at bay. It's designed to keep them from their own higher consciousness evolution, and it's designed to keep them in separation. At the end of the day, they know if they can keep us in separation, they can control us. And that's what it is. Yeah. And they do it from a place of their own fear. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I mean, they create the separation of power and control. It's an addictive type of a mindset, because it basically subsidizes and pacifies their own fear of being controlled by others. That's what it does.
Is there any information you come across that of what happened to Dr. Neruda, and were there any other follow-ons to the Wingmakers interviews that continue that story that you know?
Michael Lee Hill is a good friend of mine, and he worked with A.R. Borden and was very familiar with the Neruda story. You know, A.R. Borden was 15 in the Neruda interviews. And in the Neruda interviews, 15 is looked upon kind of as the bad guy, the bad cop. And in my conversations with Michael, he said that Borden really woke up right after those interviews came out, and he was fully aware of what happened, what went on, made a complete shift and change himself, and became very supportive of Neruda. He let him basically stay in a quiet underground environment. And what Michael said is that Neruda basically came out and imposed himself and took on the appearance of a Native American tribal warrior chief, is what he had done, and lived out the rest of his life that way. And he has since transitioned.
Oh, all right. That's a good end to the story.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again, Dave, and look forward to things progressing forward.
Yep. Okay. Great. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Alrighty. So we're going to go on to the next caller. It's Paul from area code 407. Paul, you're on the air. What can I help you with here tonight? And you need to turn down your volume in the back because I'm hearing the feedback.
Hey, Dave.
Yes.
This is Paul from Orlando.
Yes. Yeah, go ahead. Oh, you went away.
Okay.
No, there you are. Okay.
Is that better?
Yeah, okay, yeah, sure. Sounds good.
Okay.
What can I help you with tonight?
First question I have is, I have a brother in Hawaii.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. And he wants to know if there's going to be a workshop over there.
I don't have any plans on going back to Hawaii. I was there a year ago. I don't have any plans at this time of going back there. I might maybe in another year to year and a half, but nothing in the near future.
Okay. Let's see. What else was I going to ask? Are you going to be doing any Wednesday night programs on the crypto?
Yes. In fact, in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to bring Jason on, and he is going to bring on his partner. And these guys are absolute experts. They were masters in the trading markets, and they are now doing their research in trading the cryptos. And let's just say they're making a lot of money. A lot of money. I better not say that. I need to let Jason say it. But what I can tell you is that his partner, and his partner lives in Vancouver, BC, he made a lot of money in just one day in the cryptos. He basically tripled or quadrupled what he had in play in just one day. A 400% return in one day. And I was talking with Jason earlier today. Remember, Jason, he's a master in the trading markets. He's been a trader for decades. He has taught thousands and thousands of people of how to trade the markets, like what I'm doing with my workshops. He did that, teaching people how to trade the markets. And he says, in all the decades I've been involved in this, nowhere have I ever, in the stock market, in the options market, in the FX market, have been able to see the returns that we can get right now that we're getting on the cryptos. This never been anywhere in the history of the stock exchange to be able to get this kind of a return we're getting now. Like I said, I've had a 10% return in just 3 days. They will tell you times where they've had 100% returns in 5 to 7 days. And
I've been following the crypto market too.
He had the one occasion where his partner had a 400% return in 1 day. 1 day, 400% return on his money. Yeah. So.
Wow. I have one other question.
Yeah. Sure, go ahead.
Let's see. Does the Dodd-Frank bill have to be passed before the currency exchange happens because of the mail-in law?
No, it doesn't have to necessarily be passed. My understanding, what I'm being told, is they have to know that they have the votes to be able to amend it, and that they do have that. They're just waiting for them to get back.
It passed the House, I guess, and then it has to pass the Senate.
They have the votes. They're just waiting for them to come back from their August recess and to come back in after Labor Day.
Okay.
And that's when they'll take action. But they don't have to have the votes. It does not have to be in place. They just have to know that they have the votes, because it will take time. Before they could, it would take months before they could do anything. So they have months to work with.
I heard it was going to come up to vote maybe early next year, but maybe that will change.
I think it'd probably be before then, but who knows? So
yeah, I hope so.
I don't know. So
okay. I went to the Orlando workshop last time you were here.
Good.
And I'm planning on coming to the one next week. I guess it is in Orlando again.
A week from Saturday. Yeah. Have you already signed up?
Yeah.
Have you already sent me in your registration?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I don't have that list right in front of me. So yeah, good. It'll be good to see you. Come up. Make sure you come up and introduce yourself and remind me of this phone call. So there, I get to put a face to the name. Okay. That'd be nice.
Okay. All right. Thanks a lot, Dave.
Alrighty. Thanks, Paul. Okay. Well, we had some other people there, and they have kind of fallen by the wayside. Blanca, do we have anybody else there on the callers?
No, I kind of checked down the line, and it looks like that's it. We do not have any more callers.
Okay. Well, we're pretty close to hitting the 2-hour mark here tonight anyway, so unless you have anything, Blanca, I'm ready to call it a night. How about you?
We covered a lot of territory. I just want to share with the folks, because this way you can't be accused of, pitching your workshop. I'll do it for you.
Go right ahead.
Tell people to think about it. If it's possible to take a drive down to Orlando to join us. Again, main thing is you're going to be with a lot of wonderful people who understand and are actually working with many of the ideas that Dave was talking about. So if you're already on your journey with your inner work, you're going to be with resonant souls there. Also, and this is one reason why we're looking forward to going, and we're planning, it's just hopefully the schedule allows us to, is because even we hear stuff that Dave can't tell us on the phone. We hear it in the workshops.
Yeah.
So you'll get to hear the latest and greatest, and sometimes he is at liberty to share a bit more. Also, the audience is real good about knocking some really interesting tidbits with the questions, persistent questions, because Dave can't resist answering the questions as best as he can. So it's a real good forum for getting at least what Dave can share, and for getting your own questions specifically asked. And the cool thing is there's no quota on questions.
Nope.
If you've got 3 or 4, he'll answer them. And I'm really impressed how much time he allows for Q&A and addresses any question that comes his way. Now, if there's something that he cannot share and will jeopardize the whole project, he won't, and he'll be very honest about it. So I highly encourage you to take a look at it, and if you can, go as well. Now, I've been there to other workshops, and I've helped Dave welcome the people come in, and yes, some people take advantage of the scholarship, and they're there, and they make the effort to drive or to come over. And on the other hand, I've seen some people very generous who, in their experience, they've got access to funds, and they'll actually sponsor other people. I've seen people who, pay for 3 or 4 other people to attend the workshop. So people who have the means will actually support this financially. So we're all supporting it either financially or energetically. And listen, folks, I can say this because I know that a lot of people there have had their own businesses. They're very sharp people. Yes, they're spiritually advanced, but they're also very sharp people who've had businesses, been responsible for large amounts of money, and so they understand that this is the way Dave makes his money. I mean, he also has bills and has to stock the refrigerator and, buy that bottled water and all that. And, I know that he spends a lot of time on this. He'll travel and he'll spend a lot of time on conference calls. And guess what? We're not paying him any kind of salary, nor does he ask for it. So it seems like a very fair exchange to support the workshops. You get a lot out of them, I think, for the investment of time. So there, I pitched it.
Thank you.
I mean it.
I know, and that's very, very well appreciated. Every once in a while I get emails, people saying, "Oh, you're just promoting those workshops because that's your way of making money, and you're lying to the people." And I thought, I don't promote them hardly at all. And if that was my intention, I'm one of the worst promoters I've ever met in my life. Because if I wanted to promote them to make a bunch of money, I could promote them really good. I could raise the rates, and I could make a whole lot more money if money was the reason why I was doing it. So I want you to be there. I want you to be a part of what's happening here. And I think you caught that tonight in tonight's message. But Blanca, thank you very much for mentioning that. I appreciate that. So, yeah. Okay.
Well, a lot of
it's
it
for you.
Is, I encourage people because I know for the investment and the energy that they're going to be very, very pleased with the experience. So, I'm encouraging for them to allow themselves to have that experience.
Okay. Alrighty there. Anything else? Because it says we're down to about 3 minutes left. So.
Well, I think we're good over here.
I think so too. So I think we'll call it a night and we'll cut it off about 3 minutes early from the 2 hours that I have for the program. And folks, thanks again for joining us. And we will see you next week on the Sedona Connection. Okay. Good night.